There comes a quiet moment in life when everything familiar starts to feel different. The conversations that once excited you now feel repetitive. The jokes do not land the same way. The energy in certain rooms feels heavier than it used to. And the people you once felt deeply connected to suddenly seem distant, even when they are right in front of you. It is a confusing place to be, because nothing dramatic has happened. There is no clear conflict, no big betrayal, just a subtle, persistent feeling that something inside you has shifted. And now, the world around you no longer reflects who you have become. This is the uncomfortable, often lonely experience of outgrowing the people around you. And while it can feel like something is wrong with you, this experience is actually deeply psychological. It is tied to growth, identity evolution, and the quiet rewiring of your emotional world. One of the first signs is that you start craving deeper conversations. At some point, surface-level interactions stop being enough. Talking about gossip, trends, or other people's lives begins to feel empty. You do not judge others for enjoying it, but for you, it feels like eating when you are not hungry. There is no nourishment in it anymore. This shift often comes from increased self-awareness. When you have spent time reflecting on your own emotions, patterns, and purpose, your brain naturally seeks stimulation that matches that depth. You begin to ask bigger questions about meaning, about values, about life direction. And when the people around you are not on that same wavelength, you start to feel alone, even in a group. Another sign is that your tolerance for negativity becomes lower than it used to be. You notice how often people complain without wanting solutions, how easily conversations turn into criticism, blame, or subtle competition. Before, you might have participated in it without thinking. Now, it drains you. This is not because you have become too sensitive. It is because your emotional awareness has increased. Your mind no longer wants to engage in patterns that feel misaligned with your inner state. Psychologically, this reflects a shift from external validation to internal regulation. You are no longer feeding off shared negativity to feel connected. Instead, you are seeking peace and anything that disrupts that feels exhausting. So you start pulling back, not out of arrogance, but out of preservation. Then there is the growing discomfort with who you used to be. You look back at your past self, the way you spoke, the things you tolerated, the way you tried to fit in, and it feels almost foreign, maybe even a little embarrassing. This is one of the clearest signs of growth, because when your identity evolves, your brain creates distance from your old patterns. It is a natural psychological mechanism. You are no longer that version of yourself, so it feels unfamiliar. But here is the difficult part. The people around you may still relate to the old version of you. They still expect you to react the same way, laugh at the same things, stay in the same role. And when you do not, it creates tension. Not because you have changed in a bad way, but because change disrupts established dynamics. People unconsciously resist it because it forces them to confront their own stagnation. Another subtle sign is that you start enjoying your own company more than certain social interactions. You begin to realize that peace feels better than forced connection. That solitude is not loneliness, it is clarity. This shift often confuses people, especially if you were once highly social. But psychologically, it reflects a stronger sense of self. You no longer need constant external input to feel okay. Your mind becomes a place you can sit with instead of escape from. And once you experience that kind of inner calm, it becomes very hard to tolerate environments that disturb it. So you choose yourself more often, not in a selfish way, but in a grounded, self-respecting way. You also begin to notice misalignment in values more clearly. It is not just about what people do, it is about how they think, what they prioritize, how they treat others when no one is watching. Before, you might not have paid attention to these things, or maybe you ignored them to maintain connection. But now, your brain filters everything through a deeper lens. You start asking questions like, does this person align with who I am becoming? Do I feel energized or drained after being around them? Can I truly be myself here? And when the answer is no, it becomes harder to stay. This is where guilt often shows up. Because outgrowing people can feel like betrayal, like you are abandoning them, like you are thinking you are better. But in reality, it is not about superiority. It is about alignment. Growth naturally creates distance, not because you want it to, but because your internal world has changed. Another sign is that you stop seeking approval in the same way. You no longer feel the need to explain every decision, to justify your boundaries, to gain validation for your choices. This does not mean you do not care about others. It means your sense of self is no longer dependent on their agreement. And this shift can be uncomfortable for people who are used to the old version of you. They may question you, challenge you, even subtly try to pull you back into your previous role. Because psychologically, people like predictability. They like knowing who you are in relation to them. When that changes, it creates uncertainty. But your growth is not meant to fit into someone else's comfort zone. It is meant to reflect your truth. Perhaps one of the most painful signs is the feeling of emotional distance. You are physically present, but internally, something feels disconnected. The laughter feels forced. The conversations feel scripted. The bond feels thinner, and you cannot quite explain why. This happens because connection is built on shared emotional frequency. When your inner world shifts, the connection either evolves or it fades. And not all relationships are meant to evolve. Some were only meant for a certain version of you. Recognizing this can feel like grief, because you are not just losing people, you are letting go of a chapter of your life, a version of yourself that existed within those relationships. And that kind of loss is quiet but deeply felt. Finally, you start feeling a pull toward something more. You may not know exactly what it is, but you feel it. A desire for growth, for purpose, for environments that reflect who you are becoming. This pull is important. It is your mind guiding you toward alignment. But following it often requires letting go of what no longer fits. And that is where many people get stuck. Because staying is comfortable. Leaving emotionally or physically requires courage. It means facing loneliness, uncertainty, the unknown. But here is the truth most people do not say. Outgrowing people is not a sign that you have lost connection. It is a sign that you have found yourself. And finding yourself will always change your relationships. The goal is not to cut people off or look down on them. It is to honor where you are and where they are without forcing something that no longer feels authentic. Some relationships will adapt. Others will naturally fade. And new ones will eventually enter your life. Ones that match your current energy, your current mindset, your current depth. But in the meantime, there may be a period of in-between, where you feel alone, where you question yourself, where you wonder if you are making the right choice. In those moments, it is important to remember, growth often feels like isolation before it feels like expansion. You are not losing everything. You are creating space. Space for deeper connections, for more aligned relationships, for a life that actually reflects who you are now. And most importantly, for a relationship with yourself that feels real. So if you've been feeling this shift, this quiet distance, this internal change you cannot ignore, do not rush to fix it. Do not force yourself to go back to who you were just to feel comfortable again. Sit with it, understand it, trust it. Because even though it feels lonely right now, you are not falling apart. You are evolving. And that evolution, no matter how uncomfortable, is leading you exactly where you are meant to be.